Disruptors, and welcome back to another masterful episode of Mindset Mastery Moments, a podcast where we disrupt limiting beliefs, unlock legacies. Yes, of course, I'm your host, Dr. Alisa Whyte, and today we're talking about something that influences almost every decision in our life. Yeah, I'm talking about the big M, not momentum. I'm talking money. And today we have a beautiful guest in the studio with us, and her name begins with M as well, to lead us on the conversation of our money mindset. But through the lens, you may not have explored this before. We're diving into a mindset behind money. Yes, there is a mindset, or 2 or 3 or a billion or 8 billion different types of money mindsets on the planet, and why what you believe about wealth may matter more than what you know. Today, our guest is Miss Misty Lynch, a certified financial planner, host of the Demystifying Money, and the author of the book by the same name, named one of Investopedia's, I didn't know we had Investopedia, top 100 financial advisors, and also recognized by US News as one of 9 women in finance to follow. Yes, you know, we are blessed and honored to have Misty, who blends financial expertise with mindset mastery. Yeah. She's my girl to help people transform not only their bank accounts, because that is the result of mastering your money mindset, but also their belief systems around the very same money. Misty, welcome to Mindset Mastery Moments. It is such an honor for us to have you with us today. We're ready to unlock. We're calling this a money masterclass.
Thank you so much for inviting me on the show. I'm really excited to talk about this with you today.
Absolutely. Misty, you know, we always have to ask for you to tell us in your own words who you are, what you do, and how do you do it anyway?
Yeah, so thanks. I mean, you gave a great bio. So, you know, I'm a certified financial planner. I own Soundview Financial Advisors, and I'm outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And so a lot of people might have heard of financial advisors, financial planners. You know, I do help people, you know, look at their money, their budgets, and give them investment advice and financial advice. But I also, as somebody who had some money mindset issues to deal with myself, kind of started to use some of the work, some of the things I did while I was in a corporate role, afraid to be an entrepreneur, afraid to leave my job, getting life coaching, getting different types of coaching, doing a lot of work on my own personal thoughts about money, the fears that I had, some of these beliefs that I just thought were facts that weren't true. And the work I did on myself, I realized that this would be really helpful for my clients. So in 2020, I got a life coaching certification through the same school that I kind of learned from, and kind of blended it with my financial planning practice to help clients, not just with the trading and the portfolio management and, you know, making sure they have enough, but really with like the reason they come to me in the first place, which is they either want to know they're okay, they're not sure what they're doing, they want to know what they're missing, they want to feel better, or they want to feel different about something. Usually people will come, or something big in their life changed that has had a financial impact. So really kind of combine the mindset piece with the tactical side of traditional financial planning and advice. So that's kind of, in my head, it all made sense when I left corporate in 2020. I turned 40. I was ready to do something completely different. And it didn't quite make sense to anybody else, but it's really turned into like a fantastic, you know, 5 years, different opportunity, you know, that I feel like the mindset piece has so much to do with the success of the people I work with and my own.
Yes. And the beautiful thing is you obviously have been so impactful that you are able to be in the places and spaces, but you took this and you turned it into, you said no one would think it made sense, financial planning, life coach, but I've learned in my journey of mindset mastery that some of my deep, even limiting beliefs anchored right back to money, right? And you often say it's not just about learning how to budget and invest. It's about what you believe about money, what you believe about money. So can you unpack the difference between financial literacy and financial mindset for us?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that people, there's some financial literacy is incredibly important, and it is something that's wildly overlooked as far as in our education about what, your taxes, how to, interest and savings and all of those things. So they're super important. But when I think about the mindset piece of it, I think about when I ask people, like, tell me how you feel about money right now, or describe your relationship with money to me right now. And a lot of times they'll tell me things like, oh, it's pathetic, it's so embarrassing, I should be so much better, everyone's doing better than me, it's not good enough. And I want them to think, sometimes I'll just say, like, okay, imagine that, like, your relationship with money was your relationship with, like, someone you love or a child.
Right.
Is that going to grow? Is that going to succeed?
Right.
Because that is what you think every day on loop. And so every opportunity, every time that you could do better, a lot of times we're self-sabotaging because we don't realize how important our thoughts are, and the things that we say to ourselves, and the way that we might just not even stop to examine, like, is that true in general? So I think the financial literacy piece is super important. You have to take action and do some of the right things.
Right.
But a lot of times we can't even get there if we just believe these things about money that are going to hold us back.
Right. Exactly. I love that you talk about financial literacy as tools and money mindset as the operating system that uses those tools. That is so great for me. Many clients know what to do about it, but they just don't know how to address the beliefs.
Right. It's kind of like eating well. Like, we know that people, if you eat all your vegetables and you do this and you don't, drink soda and do all these bad things, that you'll be fine. But none of us do that every day. We make decisions. We make decisions based on a lot of different things, including, like, avoiding pain, like seeking pleasure, like shortcuts, all of these things. And so, like, knowing what you should do is fantastic, but it's also like, you have to really kind of get yourself in a place to want to do that, want to succeed, commit to it.
Ooh. So would you say someone can be financially educated but still be financially stuck?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's not just people who don't have, like, sometimes I'll see people who have a lot of scarcity mindset, and maybe they've made a lot of money and saved a lot of money. And sometimes I'll have to ask them, like, what do you want to do with all this besides count it? Like, but they're afraid to let it go. They're afraid they live, well below their means, which is fine, but they might not be living a comfortable life. They might be sacrificing things. They might not travel. They might not do the things that they tell me they want to do.
Yes.
Because they have these core beliefs that it's all going to be gone, or it's going to run out, or something bad's going to happen. Like, so they hoard it. So there's that end of it. And then there's some people who, really have to figure out how to learn financial literacy. But I think that, like, there's a lot of people that know exactly what to do and how to do well financially on paper, that, don't really use it in a way where they, like, kind of the energy behind money, like, it moves around. There's so much of it.
Yes.
In the world, trading every single day through banks, through through businesses, and I mean, enjoying spending money in things that you care about, or, small businesses that you look, things like that feels good. But, like, if you're afraid to move it, it can feel stuck, just like anything else.
Stuck. Yes. And so that's where those beliefs come in. So let's talk a little bit about trauma and that subconscious space. What role does past financial trauma, like growing up in a lack or witnessing financial instability, play in our current habits?
It plays so much. And I think that we start developing our financial beliefs. I've read as early as, like, 7 years old. And it's basically what we hear and see and feel. I know that when I was growing up, we had money until I was about 9. And then my father's business went through some hard times. We had to move. We had to sell things. We couldn't do the things that we did before. So, like, my 9-year-old brain had trouble kind of understanding it. So I just felt like money is the answer. Money solves all the problems. I got to figure out how to make money. And, like, literally, like, that's what I did with my
You're just on it. We get in the hustle.
My
Yes.
sister, same family, same upbringing, same house. Just, she's a professor. She went education. She doesn't really think about the same way. We're like, we've had the same scenario, but like the way we're impacted can be very different.
And that's that mindset and how.
Yeah, different conversations we have, different things we overhear. And a lot of times, we have to be really careful. And I'm careful now the way I talk to my children about money is because a lot of times we'll say things like, money doesn't grow on trees, or you might have heard like,
Yes.
you can't afford that. Where I might say things like, that's not a priority right now. Or all right, let's think about this. And like, how long will it take us to get this? How long should we save? Just different things to talk about it. Like nothing's really out of reach. Or don't feel shame for asking about these things. Because a lot of times kids ask for things that they want. And if it's a, no, you're greedy, you're this, we start to feel like that's how we are when we want anything.
Exactly.
It's really tough for people who grow up and then eventually have trouble asking for what they want or deserve at work or other places in their life.
I love that you said that, because you also say in your work that trauma doesn't always look like extreme poverty.
No.
You're saying it could just be how from just watching our own parents fight about bills. Yeah. Could be a traumatic thing that affects our money mindset and how we perceive money.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that a lot of us feel like, well, I shouldn't feel so bad, or I didn't have it that bad, but when I get to start to talk to people like about money, they might tell me things like, oh yeah, my parents always fought because this parent always spent all the money, or they hid money, or we lost all our money. The same way I thought being an entrepreneur meant like, you're probably going to struggle. You're probably going to go through some really hard times. And I honestly think like, yeah, that is a lesson I learned about entrepreneurship that is useful and helpful. It doesn't have to hold me back. It can all just be part of the story. But like, yes, that was difficult.
That is not the whole thing.
And there could still be a really beautiful side to it, because I saw that piece too. But a lot of times we focus on the things that are painful or bad. So that's just the way our brains are developed, to avoid, scary, dangerous things.
Right.
But it's good to kind of step back and be like, okay, what else could we do? What are some of the options that we can start to build in? When we think about what we really, really want, usually money is going to have to be in the picture somehow to get there.
You can't escape it. Exactly. And that makes sense why mindset work has to go deeper than spreadsheets.
It has to. I think I know some people who keep very strict budgets, and when I meet with them, they'll tell me how much they spent on bottles of water, everything, like down to like the penny. And if that feels good to them, because a lot of times
accountability is great, yeah,
like control.
That's the thing. It's what is that speaking to for you, right?
Yeah.
Where is that limiting you?
They might not have to be so focused, but they are, and it's kind of like, okay, why is that the case? Because they might be able to afford 10 times what they're doing, but they feel like that's kind of exercising some control in maybe an area that might have felt a little out of control. Right,
exactly. And so that's where the limiting beliefs come in. So let's talk a little bit about confidence, decision-making, and the financial empowerment cycle that you teach about. Confidence, of course, is such a game changer in every area of our life, but especially when it comes to money. What's the link between confidence and financial decision-making?
So I think that financial confidence, it kind of grows through action. And this is something a lot of people will tell me, I'm going to read more, I'm going to learn more. They'll consume maybe some more podcasts, more books, but they won't take action. And so sometimes even a small step for some people, like will check their credit score, or will open a high yield savings account to get a better, like little, like small things that people can do. Because once you start to make a good financial decision, even if it's something small, like looking at your pay stub, looking at your statements, knowing what's going in and out, you start to build that skill that like you made good decision about money. You're smart with your money. You're careful. Even if you're looking at something that you don't like, you're building that awareness. And sometimes confidence grows from that. We don't like little kids, they're not born knowing how to walk, but they don't quit the first time they fall down. They kind of keep going and going until they can do it. And I think that financial confidence is the same type of skill you have to build. And sometimes it could be saving $10 or finding a discount. I don't know, whatever it ends up being for you, it kind of gives yourself that proof that you are ready to
exactly
under control. And so I think that that's kind of, you talk a lot about empowerment on your shows, and I feel like that because you might feel like I'm terrible with money, I can never handle money, I have to let everyone else touch it. But once you start building those little smaller steps, eventually you can start to bridge yourself from I'm terrible with money. You're not going to feel like I'm an expert with money first without going through some steps to get there.
Exactly. It sounds, those small, consistent financial steps. It sounds like the shift framework that I teach, where clarity leads to confidence, which leads to movement. Absolutely. I love that. I am going to call in the ladies, gather around here, come around the watering hole. Women, wealth, worth, and overcoming generational and societal beliefs around money. Let's talk about unique money blocks that women face. What patterns do you see with women and wealth?
It's a very interesting shift with women and wealth that's happening right now. Women are, if you go back, I couldn't talk to my mom about what, her financial life, because I think, I was born in 1980. Like, she couldn't have a credit card with her own name.
Yeah.
She couldn't have a credit card until like 1974, like without a man saying that she needed one.
Yeah.
I can't blame her for thinking that, the path to financial independence or wealth would be through teaming up with a successful man.
Right.
That's what her mom certainly wanted for her and every generation back.
Yeah.
And so being independent financially, I feel like that's something that's relatively new.
Yes.
Even being a financial advisor, I think there's like 14% of the CFPs are women. It's something really low, 20% maybe.
I can imagine,
lower.
yes.
And so there's just not a lot of examples that you look around, or maybe in the workplace, maybe it felt like there'd be one successful woman, but she had to step on everybody to get there. There's becoming
all these masculine hats, like a dude to be in that role.
Yeah, and I think that's when I first got into, finance. Before I went to corporate for a number of years because I wanted to make money. At first I thought I'd be independent, and I think everything everybody taught me was just to learn how to play golf, join all these things that worked for men, white men.
Yes.
And they did not work at all for me. Nope. So the more I tried to hide who I was, that I had financial difficulties growing up as a child, I didn't come from wealth, that I wasn't a man, period. They're all working against me in my head.
Right, I get it.
So I really I talked to some of my friends, some of my female friends who are attorneys and other things, and sometimes they're like, yeah, I can tell you all about whiskey, all the things that we did to try to
fit in the circle of the core circle of men, the inner circle with the lords,
instead of trying to build a different circle. And so now there's a lot more women who are either co-breadwinners in their family, they're financially independent, they're the ones making financial decisions, they're single by choice, they're divorced, they're widowed, all sorts of situations. And in most women's life, you are going to be in charge of your finances at one point or another. Statistically, it's just likely.
Because most, unfortunately, husbands die before their wife.
There's a lot of times even my family, for example, my father, he passed away at 78. My mom was his long-term care plan. She took care of him. And now her plan is, what do we do?
Because he was the provider,
and I think
the in-charger of the money.
So I think that's something that it's a scary lesson to learn later in life. I think it's much better when you start to build these skills, even if you depending on how you run things in your family, but even if you're at the table, you have to be included, you have to understand what's going on. But there's a lot of women who are really struggling with building wealth because of all of the all the things that they've heard and seen about not wanting more, or it's bad to want money, or I should give it away, or if it doesn't benefit someone else, I shouldn't be doing it. Where I don't hear men say that stuff.
They don't think like that. This is why I'm always tapping into their mindset. A lot of times I'm talking to men, not so I can become like them, because most of the people who have generated wealth have been men historically.
Yes.
We are now turning the tide slowly, but I have to hear them, not so I can be like them, so I can understand. That's the thing. And I look at a lot of times when I'm looking at women and what's setting us back, even in the corporate world or in the entrepreneurial space, it's really because we think we have a worthiness issue when it comes to wealth. Like, we're really, and it doesn't matter. I was born and raised in South Guyana, South America. I got friends who were born and raised in New Hampshire or in South Africa, Australia, and we're all still dealing with the same issue. So it has to be some sort of script, as you call it, generational scripts that have been passed on to us that says, truly, it's really about, well, you're not worthy to sit where the conversation is about money.
Yeah, and I think that that's why I've gotten so loud about it.
I love that.
Because it feels good sometimes. I've had friends, I've had people whose kids go to my kids' school, other places, because I have a podcast, I talk about money a lot.
Right.
So people know that they could talk to me about it. And I've had some people who, they might have had the best year in their business ever, and they don't even know who they can tell. Because everybody that they are close to would either be like, must be nice, or something to discount it.
You're never here anymore. You're rich and smart.
Yeah, you should. Oh, how does your kids feel about that? How does this feel? And it's like, I'm just like,
no one does that to a man.
No, of course not. They would be like, you're so amazing. Your
He's
family
so celebrated. He can cheat now. He's okay to have 2 wives.
Yes, exactly. Like, you could just go, you could do whatever you want when you're that wealthy.
Yes.
I'm like, I love when people when they have success or they have issues or tax things where they're like, I made all this money, but I have this tax problem and I can't tell anyone, because they'd be like, oh my God, you made all that money? What? But they're real things that they're working through. And so it's kind of like, there's not, the more we actually can talk about it and the more we can celebrate when we have wins, we can not feel like we're so alone all the time.
Right. That's where we're changing the norm and the mindset behind the culture of money for women is to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's such a rich, needed conversation, and I believe there should be. And you're probably doing this masterminding with other women. I just got off a call earlier today with another entrepreneur who's stepping into the nonprofit space as I am, and holding space, because I hold space in both for-profit and nonprofit. I think that's very necessary. It's just a business model for me to have a nonprofit arm and a for-profit arm. And I'm like, yes, we need to there's so many of us serving, and we're actually focusing on women, and we need to come together and mastermind, because we don't have people to talk to. It's not so we can have a grump and whine and, a biatch session. Mm-hmm. It's where we literally say, I'm struggling here.
Yeah.
What have you done?
Yeah. The more we can have somebody to talk to, because we might not have a traditional mentor where somebody might have said, oh yeah, well, son, this is, I'm going to teach you the business. You're going to learn it all. And then you're going to take it over. I think it's great to have those spaces, because you might be like, I'm struggling with this, and or I'm at this level now, and this is my business is scaling or something, and I don't know what to do, but someone else has been there before, and they can talk about it, and they can help.
Even if it's once a quarter, you can have that mastermind for an hour or 2, and then people can find, you're aware of maybe 7, 8 other women that are along the journey. Some are ahead, some are coming up, and some are in between, and you can reach out and have hey, Misty, I remember you talking in our mastermind about having that moment when you were just so done, or you were so burned, or you were just tired of playing. Tell me, what was that like? And that's a little bit of mentorship that's coming in at that time for you.
Yeah. And I think that can make people feel more comfortable going through these steps that we're going to go through, not just the highlight reel that we're seeing on everybody's social media, to know that there's real things, and there's real times where you might be like, why am I still feeling this way? I should be happy. Like, what's happening?
Come
And that's
on.
where working with somebody or talking with other people. I even have one friend who's a financial, and it's just like, sometimes we'll just get a coffee just to like see just to check in, because there's not a ton of us. And I could look at her like my competition because we're in the same geographic location, or I could look at her as like the best resource that I have.
It's her.
It's a choice.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Ooh, that's a whole nother conversation, money mindset and women. That's for me, that's a whole, and I love that you approach that in your work so well. Let's talk about scarcity and abundance, that mental shift that helps us build lasting wealth. Mindset shift time, right? What does it look like to go from a scarcity mentality to an abundant one? Because a lot of people are out here struggling. They don't even know that they have a scarcity mindset. That's one that I talk a lot about, mindset, the scarcity versus abundance.
I think people assume that feeling abundant means that you're sitting with your legs crossed meditating and like the money just starts flowing to you.
So true.
I'm not a very
Dollars.
I want to be somebody who's good like that, but I feel like there are certain things where it kind of works. Like, I think you have to start to align your work in your life with what like brings you joy, like what feels a little bit easier or effortless. Because I'll talk with people and they have these things they want to do, and they kind of they'll start to tell me about some of the dreams, some of the things they wish they could do, but instead they feel very stuck. I have to stay here. I'm never going to make more money. I'm never going to do this. I have to kind of take, and so we'll kind of start to think about that, because I think like abundance, that shift from scarcity to abundance, it kind of comes with like maybe feeling a little neutral first.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not like money is terrible, but like maybe like, or people with money are bad. It's like, some people with money are very good.
Yes.
And, or, I don't have enough money, but I have enough money to get through today. Things like that can kind of not take it to, I have more money than I could ever need immediately, but
exactly.
Get from like, okay, but what do you have? What has money provided for you already? And like, I feel like sometimes it's just kind of changing your mindset a little bit slowly till you get to that point, because I do think that you need to like understand that you don't have to struggle or suffer to make money. You don't have to sacrifice your family or your life. It's not this trade-off necessarily.
It's not necessary.
To make things so bad that you avoid it. That's just something you tell yourself to stay exactly where you are. Because your brain wants to stay alive. It doesn't want to keep you happy.
Love safety.
It wants you to survive. And so if you've survived up to this point, even if you're deep in debt or you're at a miserable job, like, you're not dead.
You're not dead. You're still alive.
Going to be like,
you're still winning.
Let's stick around here.
Yeah.
Even though we're not that happy. And so it does take kind of catching yourself when you say those things, those limiting beliefs, when you hear those, and just questioning, like, is that true? Or is that mom or dad that I'm hearing when I say that? Is that coming from somewhere else? Is this how I feel? Or maybe balancing it out with something that kind of contrasts with what that thought is at the time.
Exactly.
And trying to move shifts kind of towards that positive direction. And then things will start to, it's amazing how much when you get in alignment, things start to feel so much easier, and opportunities tend to appear and things happen. And it might be that they were always there, you just were not ready.
Exactly. Whoa, exactly. That reminds me of when I had to move from a fear-based decision-making to a strategy-based one. It changes how you operate altogether. Definitely so solid. Let's talk. I love also that you talk about budgeting not as restriction, but as reflection. Walk us through what that means to build a value-based budget. I love that. I can't wait to hear this.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of people believe that budgeting is about restriction, cutting back, not having any fun.
That's why we don't like to do it.
But we don't like to do it. But I think of it more like direction. Kind of like if you were to be in a car and put where you're going in a GPS and get there, instead of just heading north and hoping it works out.
No one
And
does that.
feeling frustrated. Nobody does that. Everything else that we
Right.
do, if we're planning an event, if we're planning a vacation, we plan, we get information, we get curious, we find out details, we do all of this work. But when it comes to like our own financial well-being, I can't do that. That's just going to be too painful. We're great at it. We do it all the time. But I think that with a budget, a lot of times people they have this thought, or they'll talk to me and say like, I make money, I just don't know where it is. I don't know where it went. I don't know where it's going. And so when we look at it, you might say, okay, part of this pre-tax from your paycheck is going straight to your retirement here. You're not going to see that, or it's going here. This is how much is going into taxes. This is how much you have here left to spend. These are maybe all the subscriptions that you're paying for that you don't like or don't use. This is all the things that we spent on, groceries. And then this was the food we bought on DoorDash because we didn't want to make the food that we bought with the groceries. So kind of just figuring out like what's going on.
Yes.
With your, we can look at their calendar, we can look at their bank statement and know exactly where their priorities are. Even if they say, I want to travel, I want to be generous, I want to donate to charities, like we can look and be like, okay, this isn't what you're doing. This is why it doesn't feel right. That's why it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And so kind of, if we can look at their budget, maybe automate some of their finances, some of their savings, some of their debt payoff, their investing to remove some of that stress, knowing that these things are going to be happening in the background. Then maybe we can find some room in the budget that's just for those wants, those things that you feel like doing, and those big goals you're saving for. And then I think it starts to feel, even if you have to cut back in certain areas or be more aggressive with savings, I feel like when you know that it's directed and it's serving a purpose, and that future you is going to be really happy you started doing this stuff today.
Yeah.
It does feel better. It's not painful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's so painful.
It's not. That shift alone could really change someone's relationship with money forever if they just take that one bit that you just gave us right there.
Yeah, and I think that most businesses have budgets. The government has budgets. Everything has budgets. So I think that if you're able to kind of figure out what you have coming in and going out, that's part of building that confidence skill. Even though you're not making any changes necessarily yet, it's just an easy thing you could do to start to feel that awareness and kind of accountability about like, okay, at least I'm taking my head out of the sand and I know what's going on, and I'll decide if I want to keep it or change it.
Exactly. I love that perfectly. So, oh my gosh, you've given us so much. I feel like I've been taking from you, but you've been pouring so well. I just love it. So we're going to do flip the script, where we just dig a little bit into you and your own mindset. So tell us about a time, Misty, that you had to flip the script of your own financial mindset.
Yeah, so I think when I was growing up, I mentioned how we kind of lost, we didn't have money until after I was 10, until I became an adult and independent. And for like part of my life, I didn't like wealthy people because we lived in like the smallest apartment in like a very wealthy town in Connecticut. And so I just like to protect myself from like feeling bad or wishing I had what everybody else had. They rode horses. They had crazy stuff that like I just decided that like rich people were jerks. They weren't nice. They were just bad. And then when I started to want to learn more about money, like it took me like a while to kind of be like, how am I gonna become
one of them?
If I think they're all terrible. And so I was like, who is great? And I'm like, well, like look at Dolly Parton, look at all these other women who are like super rich and like super amazing, changing the world, being so nice, helping, like building like a fabulous career that they can be proud of, and like even like not just how generous and like how charitable they are, but just in general how cool that is.
Relaxed and great and living with ease and purpose and fulfillment and all that stuff.
Yeah, so like I started to try to find the people that were wealthy, that were doing like amazing things in the world.
Exactly.
And that kind of helped me like get over that weird, but it was just kind of protecting my like little kid brain, I think.
It does.
Because I knew that when we did have money, my dad wasn't a bad guy. He was successful for quite a while. Like the first 10 years of our lives, we had really nice things.
Yes.
So I had to kind of stop that thought, or I never would have been successful. ever.
Right, because that is an embedded limiting belief that served you. See, that's the thing. I talk about belief systems, and I
Mhm.
just posted an entire in my newsletter on LinkedIn talking about these thoughts and beliefs that limit you now in this season
Mm.
of your life. They served you and protected you at some time.
Mhm.
But the issue is you have to now let it go,
Yeah, I
because
let it go.
now it doesn't serve you and the version of you and the goals and dreams that you have for yourself. So I try to tell people that limiting beliefs are there, they're everywhere, and it's not a bad thing. It's
Mhm.
you being able to release it and replace it, release, reframe, and replace, so you can rise into the spot that you want to be in, right? So that's
Absolutely.
just so powerful. That's a great share, because many of us think about our own mindset about money and limiting beliefs. We think about the big things. Like, people are obviously afraid, who are just mean, that grandma, if you asked her for $1, she'd give you 10 cents. They
Mhm.
think about that. But I feel like even that little thought, because I thought rich people were just, they were just stuck up. They were just awful,
Thought
like
they were
not
better than
nice.
me. No.
Yeah.
And then it was like, it's just, I guess it's funny because sure, there are some people like that. There's some poor people that think they're better than me too and aren't nice.
Right. And we didn't see it though. We didn't see
Yeah.
it as long as they were. And it's funny because people thought when we were growing up, we were rich. And my sister, she would ask my mom, "Mommy, are we rich? How rich are we?" And I'm like, "What the heck is she even talking about when Daddy doesn't even want to give Mommy money?" And that was something I had to heal, because
Mhm.
my thing is, by all means, I don't need a man to give me money. Which
Mhm.
is the flip. I don't, but at the same time, the whole thought that I'm thinking that was a traumatic way of bonding in my marriage, because I
Yeah.
didn't want him to give me anything, which
Yeah.
is
And then you're like,
weird.
no, he can. Of course he can.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So all that is, again, how you feel, what you feel, how you interpret, but shredding it and letting it go when you realize it doesn't serve you anymore. Thank you for sharing that. One other question I have for you. Now that you have healed so much of your own relationship with money and limiting beliefs, what does success look like for you today?
Success, I think today it looks a lot different than I thought it would look like. Like
Mm,
20 years ago. I mean, success for me, like right now I'm traveling and I left home this morning and I'll be home tomorrow night.
right.
And like, you know, instead of feeling like, oh, thank God, and it's fine to feel like you can get away for a little bit, but like, I want to get back to my life. I like
Yeah.
my life. I'm happy. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's, not work to do. There's not more goals that I have or anything like that. But I feel like success is kind of like having a life that you don't
You
need
don't
to
want to
escape from.
escape.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
I
like,
love that.
I think that to me, like, it's not the biggest house in my town. And it's not like, but it's like, it's my dog, my family. Like there's
The
like some
vibe.
things that to me just, yeah, it feels good. I like my work. I love my clients. Like things just feel really peaceful. And I
Yeah.
think that, a lot of times I thought success meant like working harder, hustling more, grinding it out. Like, and I don't think that that's my version of success anymore. I think success now is when things feel aligned and easy.
Ooh, girl, that must be what happens when you're 45.
But it's accessible, I think,
Yes. Yes, it
for all of
is.
us, even if it's just little pieces of our day or our life while we're getting to where we want to go, is kind of really being, just really like I guess it could be grateful, or at least feeling something for like what you already have and knowing that you could still want more, and that's okay.
You can still want more. Right. I love that. Oh, that's so beautiful. So, one question I have for you: what is one piece of financial advice you got very early in your life that you remember that really kind of still serves you today, that you hold on to?
Yeah, so I got a lot of terrible advice from just people with my money, but I did do a stock market contest when I was in the 6th grade, and
Wow.
I picked Coca-Cola was the stock that I picked, and this was in the 90s, and I thought that Fruitopia, it was a like juice drink that I thought it was going
I
to be the biggest
remember
hit.
that.
Yeah, and so I didn't win the contest, but I remember learning about the stock market in that
Mm,
brief section of school or whatever, and telling my parents, like, I figured it out. Like, there's a way you can put money into other businesses.
Yes.
And then they use it to make more money. And then as they make more money, your
You get
investment
some.
goes up.
Yeah.
Mind blown. I thought we were done. I had solved all of our problems. And they were like, great. Where are we going to come up with that money to invest? And I was like, I don't know.
That's what you do? You're the grown up?
Yeah, like find it and invest money. But I feel like the second that I got a job, I started to invest some of my money because I'd learned, like, yeah, no, this is how you build a real wealth. This is what the guys do. This is what, like, the rich people do.
Right.
And, like, I was in because it didn't require much. There wasn't a huge, like, the bar was pretty low to start. It's like, oh yeah, open this 401k at your job or do this or whatever. And I was like, okay, let's go.
Yes.
And I haven't stopped, and I help people do it now still. But I mean, it was literally in the 6th grade. I had no clue what the stock market was before that. Not a single stock owned in my family before that.
Before you did. Wow. So you break the whole new lane of generational wealth by following it. And that's why that question comes from. It's one of the new ones I'm asking everybody because someone might be listening and they're like, it's funny. Seems like the signs are everywhere. I've heard that. And they might be, early 2021, and they're like, now they're going to look into it just because of that. And that might change everything for them the way it did for you.
Yeah, sometimes it's really just kind of starting out, and then you don't have to be, and that's the thing about feeling like everything has to be all or nothing. I have to have all this money, I have to $100,000, or I can't start investing. Like, no, you can get started with, like, not very much anymore. That you don't need to have a stockbroker in New York doing your work for you. Like, you just need a phone.
Wow.
An app or a job where, or a plan or something. And so it's never been really easier to start being an investor. And I think, like, even those that's building that confidence.
Right. With one of those baby steps you talked about.
And even if, like, you don't make a ton or you learn, like, that's learning. That's action. So
that's action. Yes, the action that brings the confidence, that brings you into the space you want to be in. I love that. So one practical question before we go and flip the script that you can probably help us flip up the script of our mindset when it comes to money. If someone's listening today and they thought, what was 1 or 2 steps I can take today to really start to build wealth? It's not something that's going to make them rich overnight. That's not what we're talking here. We're talking about building wealth. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think that we have to building wealth. I don't think you build wealth in a checking and savings account.
I would have been a millionaire already.
And that's one thing that is kind of I've talked to really good savers that are afraid to get to that next level of actually, like, investing or doing some tax, like, when they might be very successful, but, like, there is the money has to be working harder, not you working harder all the time, because there's going to be a point where you can't work harder, but your money has to keep up with inflation. You have to, and that could involve risks. It could involve, like, investing in real estate or the stock market or businesses or something else that's appreciating, that's gaining, building wealth while you're doing something else, while you're sleeping, while you're working, while you're home. That's a really important thing, I think, for people to either, and even if it's starting small, even if it's putting 1% into their 401, anything, starting to really feel like the money has to move somewhere else, and start going to work.
Right. For you. Yeah. You got to start with investing. And so whether you need an advisor or you need a plan, or you want to do the research, go out.
Yeah, I think there's some people that are really good at doing work on their own. I think there's some people that are like, look, I have this money here, but I don't have the time or the interest to really learn what I should be investing in. And that's where it can be very helpful. I have some people who are investing their own money on their own, but they want a financial planner to look at the rest of the big picture. Do they have enough? What else could they be doing? Answering those big questions. Could they take a different job? Could they move? And looking at their whole financial picture together and kind of running some what if scenarios and looking at their investments and seeing if there's any gaps, there's any changes to make. But they're the ones that might be doing that. And so that's something that started to grow as well, as people just wanting that second set of eyes, or that person that can
An
kind
expert
of
set of eyes. Someone
talk
who
to them
knows
about
what they
it.
know. Yeah.
Because they know what they know, and they know what
Yeah.
they've learned, but they might do something completely different in their day to day. So I think that that's where an advisor can be really helpful. I think that, you know, you could even follow different people on LinkedIn, or like, you can learn a lot from different people and kind of take action from there if you're looking for those small steps. There's never been more like access and coaches and people that are really, you know, kind of giving out those resources for, you know, people who are really just starting out. And then if you get to a certain point, you might want to, you know, invest in, you know, a financial advisor or somebody else to, you know, to help you at that point.
Exactly. I would say, because money matters so much in all of our lives, do you think that we have to be making this much money or that? Because a lot of times we hear the word financial planner, and based on what you just said to us, or advisor, and we think, oh, that's for the rich people. Isn't it also important for someone who's really taking actionable steps, like an entrepreneur that might be listening to us, to include a financial planner, at least a consultant, a consultation with them, or something off and on where you have them look at, okay, even if you're only grossing 120K per year, where you actually still have someone, like you said, that second pair of eyes. Would you say that we should take away that limitation that we need to be rich to have a financial plan?
Yeah, I think so. I think that there's a lot of times where I've talked to people who were younger, just starting out. I've talked to people who've, there's some advisors that do hourly work. When I started out, I was doing hourly work. And like, even some of the questions I can answer for somebody in an hour, or setting up the right type of account for them, or getting them going, that could have a massive financial impact down the road.
Yes.
That maybe they would have put off, or they would have felt they needed to learn more about, or weren't ready, if they hadn't said, I want to speak with someone. Especially, young entrepreneurs, sometimes their businesses can grow overnight. Certain things can change. And so if they're already thinking about the steps for like, how do I, and usually the first thing that happens is like a big tax bill for those entrepreneurs or something like that.
Yeah.
But they say, oh, maybe somebody can help me figure this stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of times that could be setting up the right type of account for that, or things like that a financial advisor can do. And there's plenty of different ways that advisors work. I don't get compensation from like selling products. So I think like if you're looking for a fiduciary financial advisor, they just work for you. They answer your questions. They're not compensated by like an insurance company or anybody for selling their products. That's a good start. There's plenty that work for insurance companies that are good. It's just depending on like, if you just need advice, then trying to find somebody who's like a certified financial planner would be the right start.
A certified financial planner. Yeah, that would be something. That's what you do as well, right?
Yeah.
You just have your various brackets that you work with. Awesome stuff. You've given us so much, but there's one thing before you tell us how to connect with you and the work that you do in the world. We have something called Mindset Bites to go, where you get to drop the mic. It's that 90-second to 2-3 minute mic drop moment that will you answer a question as if it was your last 90 seconds to talk to the world. What is one belief about money you want every listener to walk away with today? I step away from the microphone and the camera, and it's just you and our listeners and viewers. So here we go, Misty.
I would say that you should define what wealth and success means for you. And I think that people need to realize that there's not a one-size-fits-all plan. There's not a certain amount of money that you need to have before you can retire. There's not a certain amount of money you need to make to be a successful person. Your money should help you create this life that feels good to you now, and that's going to be able to support you in the future. And I think when it comes to getting financially healthy, you have to understand that it's okay to spend money on things that bring you joy, just as long as it aligns with your plan. And that plan might have to eliminate some of the things that don't bring you joy, that maybe are the old habits, or some things that the old you maybe cared about but doesn't need to direct her money or energy to anymore.
So powerful. I absolutely love that. I know so many people are listening and want to connect with you, Misty. Tell us how do we connect with you and your work. And I know you have a couple things that you have that people can access to get started on their financial planning journey. Can you share that with us?
Sure. I think the easiest way to connect with me would just be to go to my website, mistylynch.com. Very simple. That is where you can find the book, episodes of my podcast where I talk with different entrepreneurs about how they've made money and how they, how they're able to, and different people who've had financial success and different money issues, even if it helps to just hear other people and their stories. So you can find the podcast there, and also that's where you can find, different checklists, different news articles, things like that might help you if you're just looking to kind of dive in and learn as much as you can. Or you could connect with me from there to my website for Soundview Financial Advisors or my social media.
Absolutely. And as you guys know, we always have every bit of information right here on this episode where you're listening and watching. All the links will be in the description here. And also, you will definitely see Misty's podcast as one of the podcasts we love, because I'm always looking for podcasts that I dive into. And I definitely just added hers to mine yesterday. So, Misty, again, thank you so much for being a phenomenal resource on helping us to rewire and master our money mindset and really busting through some of those limitations that's holding us back here. You've just been amazing today.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure.
Thank you. Disruptors, listen, remember to keep mastering your mindset around money. It isn't about chasing perfection. It's really about choosing alignment, according to what Misty taught us today. She reminded us that financial freedom starts right in the mind. And if you're ready to flip the script, today is the best day. Start now, begin today. Go to mistylynch.com, and officially she is our first money mindset rewiring speaker, trainer, coach, and all the wonderful things she's doing. Check out our podcast. We're so glad to be a part of what she's doing. Listen, until we see you next time, keep mastering your mindset. Love, light, peace, and blessing. I'm Alisa, and I'm out. Bye.